How's it, everyone? I'm Daneel Steinmann, the co-founder of Oldschool, and also a aspiring chartered accountant that's signing off hopefully in the next few months in the VAT IT group. It's so great to be here. I'm very privileged to have everything around me look as fancy as it does, because I can actually sit here today and give you my founder story. I think I've realized as I've grown over the last few years as a entrepreneur to an actual entrepreneur, that it's so important to capture your thoughts and your story, because it can be inspiring to those of you that's sitting there today wondering, what it takes to start a business, that also wants to start a clothing brand, in the chartered accountancy route or not. I think there's so much to learn, and hopefully some of the wisdom and snippets that I have, the little that it is today, I could share with you guys. So let's dive into it. I think ideally I don't want to sit here and give you guys a CV, but I think just to maybe give you a background myself. I was born in Pretoria, in an Afrikaans family. Grew up in Somerset West, so I'm a full-on Stellies boot. I was there at school in Polroos, in hostel, and also in Huismaree for 4 years at university. In my early years, I've always been a dreamer. So high school for me was always about sport. I was an average good rugby player. My joke's always that I'm smarter than I was good in rugby, but it was initially always a dream to pursue it. So I had the privilege to play against and with many of the Springboks now. Actually a few months ago, Damien Villens came and visited me in Twickenham. I'm actually the guy that gave him the nickname Gaza. So it's crazy how quickly times have changed. But back in high school, I was fully set on becoming Springbok number 54 for Polroos. I played first team, and after school I actually had an opportunity to go into full-time rugby with scholarships at the Sharks or the Western Province, or to go study. So like I said, I knew that academically was a very strong element for me, and that's why I decided to go into university directly. I played Varsity Cup for Marties in my first year. I was in a Varsity Cup final where Mani Lebok outkicked us and we lost in the final on TV. And that was my end of my fame for the little rugby career that I had. I think after that, I found my identity in doing really exceptionally well academically, but also still being a bit of the Kayer layer, as they would say. And I think a lot of things changed for me in my third year at university. And if I look back, I almost wish that first and second year, I didn't take 2.5 years to find my feet, at university. So I think where things really changed for me was in my third year. My parents didn't give me a lot of money, so I actually had to work on a wine farm to entertain my drinking and party habits, and ended up actually working at a wine farm and passing all of the sommelier exams. And I got an email saying I'm the youngest sommelier in Africa at 22. So I posted my CV abroad, got jobs at Michelin stars in Germany. And I think that I was three and a half months in my third year, I was in Germany, and it was such a life-changing experience, the traveling, and just I would say a big pivotal change in just my perspective of the world, and this little bubble that, I think Stellenbosch, you get sucked into this small bubble almost. That, like I said, I'm actually, if you're still listening, hopefully we'll get to the good parts, but I just wanted to give you a bit of background. Where we actually started Oldschool was end of my third year. Was Rugby World Cup was coming up, and my brother and I was looking for a long sleeve cotton product that we only saw the vintage players used to wear, but you couldn't buy it anywhere. Ironically, at the time, I didn't know that no one made it, because 100% thick cotton is quite expensive to make, and that a 100% markup on your product is definitely not sufficient for a clothing brand. But that's how we started it, and people loved the product, and before I'd know it, we were actually selling hundreds of it. Jack Barrow and a few people were wearing it, and I had all of these dreams to build it into a huge business, but I had none of the tools to actually create a business. So that was where I was stuck when my honors year started. And for anyone that's in the PGA or the honors and the chartered accountancy route, they know your honors year is an exceptionally challenging time. I think academically it is by far the most stimulating and most hard work that, you know, anyone that was in that journey would resonate with. And I think balancing my own businesses while doing my honors and actually trying to cum laude my degree still was one of the toughest things, but it was also an unbelievable opportunity to learn the discipline of time management and to be able to have focus blocks in your day. You know, I still don't think I've completely mastered it, but it's something that I think since honors, it's been very pivotal in my career to make sure that I always get everything that I have on my platter, you know, done. So that sort of, in honors, it was an exceptional year of learning and also sort of building the business. Between this, I dropped Old School a bit, and me and my brother started a non-profit that raised money over COVID for families in need. We got Sia Kulisi, AB de Villiers, to like donate merchandise, and in the process we sort of gave all the proceedings back to charities. And you know, that was like a sort of, for myself, a chip on the shoulder that I can build bigger businesses. You know, it was the largest non-profit in South Africa for a month. We fed 20,000 families for 3 months over COVID, you know, and mainly being all of the donations that Sia and AB got from donating goods. But it was such a cool experience for me to see how quickly something can scale if you have product market fit, or you can find something that people really like. About that time, I sort of was introduced to a guy with the name Daneel Lewis, which has become a very close friend of mine, and he was actually working at VAT IT. So for anyone that's in the CA route, they know, like, when you get to your honors and you start looking at the options, you either have, in our head, it was auditing or Investec Nedbank. You know, there's no sort of in between. And for me, you know, I was looking around thinking that I know sort of my goal is to build businesses. I don't want to be a corporate junkie that sort of just climbs a ladder. And there wasn't really something out there. And actually, VAT IT via Dan Lewis approached me to sort of speak about the program, which at the time was very new. And it was about saying that you can do your chartered accountancy articles outside of public practice, which is quite revolutionary because you can still become a chartered accountant without having to go audit. And auditing for a creative mind like myself was by far the subject that I despised the most. So that was sort of a very something that I really entertained. But I also think, and I can resonate with people that do well academically, how overwhelming it is, because, you know, I was looking at Standard Bank, at Deloitte, should I go to the UK, should I do this program at VAT IT, and it's almost like you end up, a normal guy almost end up going the non-risky route, which is traditional, because every bully would tell you, yeah, just go to Deloitte or PwC, it's a great career. But the world has changed so much, and it's changing even faster, that I think it's so important to be at a place where you can dynamically learn and not sort of have that traditional way of schooling. I'm actually pretty fed up thinking that the amount of hoops you got to jump through to become a professional, whereas I think the real life experience is what, you know, everyone is actually needing in a workspace. So yeah, I ended up signing at VAT IT, and it's probably one of the most pivotal decisions that I made, and it would significantly change the trajectory of my articles, to be able to sit here in my mid third year, being able to have this conversation with you guys and just talk about it. So for me, when I joined the program, and just to give you a bit of background, VAT IT is the world's largest regulation tech group. So it's unbelievable what they've built. They a privately owned business from Johannesburg, with offices in about 40 countries across the globe, under the radar, but they have figured out how to build businesses that earn global revenue, but base the brilliant talent and utilize the workforce that South Africa has. And in my head, I still believe South Africans are some of the most hardworking professional people you can find. And since joining, I was eye-opening to see, you know, I've always thought you have to be in the US or in the UK to build a US-based business, whereas I've realized now just how much opportunity there are to build businesses here that has global potential. And I think that's what VAT IT does best, is they find talent and they cultivate it. And so just a bit more about my articles. When I joined here in my first year, I'm almost embarrassed on how groen I was, in the sense of like, I thought, I've built a successful non-profit, my business is doing okay, me and my brothers, I can add a lot of value. And I must say the first few months was like really humbling to understand just how little I understood about finding scheduling assistant time for someone to schedule a meeting, the proper way to do emails, the etiquette of working with people, how you can't just ask someone for something and jump on a phone, you got to book it. So it was like, I was like almost this jockey that knew how to build businesses, but I had no idea how to function in a larger organization. And it was an unbelievable experience. I was also very privileged, and those that follow me on LinkedIn would know I'm quite vocal in that sense, was that I had the privilege where Justin Trigger, which is the founder of the import leg of the business, which is a huge 500 employee plus global business that services Microsoft, Amazon, Netflix, etc., to help build the e-commerce leg in the group. And I was literally the 23-year-old with absolute no professional experience, and I was put with some of the smartest chartered accountants that I've met in a room. I remember our first meeting about this e-commerce leg. There was like 5 people in a room, and 4 of them were CAs that were top 10 in the country. And I did the math. I'm like, this almost doesn't make sense. There's only like 10 out of 10,000 every year, and I've got 4 in the room here. Why am I here? And that was beginning 2021. And what, I don't want to talk about it in every single detail, but, I had the privilege of being part of something. There was 4 people with the founder of the business directly sitting in on every single sales call, to a year and 2 months later, hiring over 100 employees and building that from 4 to 100 people in less than 12 months. And I was one of the guys heading up the entire partnership division, as a 23-year-old lighty that's never hired someone, that's never fired someone, that's never been involved in any of these conversations. And here I was, having people in my team 4 or 5 years older, much smarter and much more qualified than me. And I'm the one reporting multi-thousands of dollars. I don't even think I can mention the numbers that we were dealing with in the marketing spend. And I'm one of the guys controlling the divisions. It was an unbelievable learning experience. And I made so much mistakes as well. And I think what I loved was the way that we were sort of encouraged to learn and to make mistakes. And that mistakes isn't always failures, but it's a way to learn from them so that you can have success in the future. And I think that was so crucial for me to then transfer this knowledge to my brother that was running Oldschool full-time, about like, listen, like, here's the principles I'm learning. Like, we need to hire, we need to just think, we need to think bigger than a side hustle doing a few $100,000 a year. And I think for me, I was so privileged to sit in these leadership meetings with Saul Goldstein and Justin, which is the founders of the businesses, that taught us everything from how to hire, what to look for, how to compensate someone, how to sort of motivate someone, how to sort of let someone go if it's the time. It's questions that you almost like think about, but you're scared to ask, and they just addressed it directly. And those learning experiences for me was so great because I could apply them. I had this mini MBA where I was learning everything. I was building a business between 9 to 5, but in my 5 to 9 after work hours, I was applying this in Oldschool and seeing the ripple effect it had on my business. So that was very exciting, because I think at the end of 2021, we realized we wanted to do an entire rebrand of Oldschool. We signed up Evan Ruiz, which now obviously became a global rugby name, but then he was sort of just starting out for the DHL Stormers. We got a whole content shoot, we did a whole launch, and we rebranded from Oldschool Rugby Jerseys, which didn't really have a name or brand attached, to Oldschool, with this idea to build a leisure wear and supporters wear brand, focus on rugby inspiration, and then to grow into other business units as like other sports later on. And end of 2021, it started really picking up. And in 2022, it was an absolute phenomenal growth year for me in that side of the business, as we saw how, we went from only selling online to being stocked into every single sportsman's and warehouse and total sports in the country, getting the licenses for the Western Province, Stormers, Sharks, Cheetahs, Lions, Orlando Pirates, and like starting to sort of hire 4 or 5 full-time people that like run the different sides of the business, the sales, the marketing, the operations. And it was, for me, the only reason I was able to do it is because I had the confidence that you need to take risks to build businesses that I learned within the CA program I was in. I think in a Z perspective, 2022 was great because especially at the beginning of the year, I got to travel so much because we were dealing with these huge corporations. So, like my LinkedIn and Instagram was full of New York, Vegas, LA, Atlanta, San Diego, Austin, UK, Manchester. Like I was probably about, in 2022, I was about 7 or 8 times abroad, and I probably spent almost 2.5 months on trips just for work, meeting clients, meeting partners. And here I was like a 25-year-old lighty sitting in a room for a billion-dollar company with the entire exec team in this big boardroom, me alone that Ubered there that morning with my pitch deck and confidently sitting there telling them how we could assist them and signing these huge clients, and I think I just realized how much capability youngsters have if they entrust with sort of, and they sort of incubated to learn. And I think I just realized, like, just as I was given this opportunity, other people that are brilliant, that want to build businesses, that got this hunger and fire inside of them, shouldn't sit around and wait. They should take action. So yeah, that was my 2022, and it was an exceptional, like I said, learning phase. And it was the time that the group was pouring a lot of money into Z because there was high projections. And yeah, 2023, I had the privilege to go work for 6 months in the UK. My fiance is much smarter and prettier than I am, and she's at Investec. So, I sort of said to Justin beforehand that, if I can be in a sales position, I could theoretically work from anywhere if I can get results. And, that was the type of flexibility I was given to go and go work there. And I think being in the UK for 6 months has also sort of now coming back from this has taught me so much about just how important it is for us South Africans, because while I was there, the rand deflated with like 25-30% to the dollar and the pound. So theoretically I was earning 30% less than I was doing 3 months ago, and so was my net worth. And I just realized it's so important for South Africans. They always want to just talk about going abroad, but a lot of times I think it's so important for us to start asking the question, why can't we also be involved in companies that are dollar-based or looking at international opportunities, but with operation centers from South Africa? So yeah, I mean, this is just a bit of background of who I am, what my story is, and where we are at. Currently at the moment, like I said, Oldschool is growing rapidly. My brother's still sort of heading up the business, but we'll probably end up doing over 8 figures this year, and we had the opportunity to grow this from barely nothing, and I've had all the tools learned from being in this program. So I think for me it's so important for those in honors or in university that's looking at options when they want to go and like sort of discuss what career paths there are. I believe that some of us, and if I'm talking to you and this resonates with you, you almost have that fire inside of you to be impactful, to do cool things and grow cool businesses. And when I'm saying to those guys and for those girls and guys out there, it's so important to reflect and ask yourself, like, where do I want to be in 5 years? And my problem with the auditing route was there wasn't an exciting option for me when I moved into my first year if I would have gone to an audit firm, because I knew I would try to get out of audit, you'd be a manager, nothing really special. Whereas, for me, where I could be in the next 2 years is, if I stay on here, I could even further grow the businesses I'm in. I can go full-time and now take my learnings and apply that. But I think nonetheless, it's so important for people that ask those questions like, where do you want to be in 5 years? And work back to go look at what program would cater to your goals and your ambition. I hope today would just give those inspiration that want to feel they want to sort of get out of their chair at university, do more. From my side, I feel, and it almost says, it's a bit cringe to say, but when you're at university, it's the perfect time to start a business. Like, you have no risk. You've got the perfect audience because you can sell to people around you, test the market. You can quickly get your first revenue. You have zero overheads. You've got extra time. We all know how much time you have for drinking. You can put that into starting a business. Take that risk. Start something. Even if it fails, you'll learn a lot. And for those of you that want to have a conversation with me, go look on LinkedIn, Daneel Steinmann, or you guys can email me directly at Daneel, DANEELSTE@z.co. I'd love to help you. I'd love to have a conversation with you guys. And like I said, please feel free to reach out. And I'm hoping to do more of these content in the future to inspire the next generation, because I wish there was someone giving me these advice when I was 21 years old. Okay, great. So first question, what advice would I give to my 20-year-old self? I think almost what I said in the event. I said, I think it's so important to focus on figuring out what makes you feel strong. My dad always says, you don't define a strength that's something you're good at, but something that makes you feel strong. And I believe that while you're young, you need to go figure out what drives you, what motivates you, because a lot of time isn't what you're studying. And that's also okay. I don't think university is only there for the degree. I think as you grow older, you realize the only thing that really matters in life is experience. And university should be a time to really test out ideas, meet people, just be more involved and not just sort of sit with your core friend group and have a very almost mundane routine of drinking, sleeping, binging, studying. Go and do things meet new people, network, find people that are different than you, because ironically when you start working, the people you work best with a lot of times have got a complete different mindset than you and have different strengths. So go figure out what your strengths are and go figure out with who you connect well with, and just don't be scared to take risks. Second question, how do I split my time? Well, personally, I do struggle to switch off, but I think it's so important to have focus blocks. The people that manage to do the most in life, I would say, are the most driven to make sure they tick off what they need to do. Measuring your time spent on something is a vanity metric. You want to be focusing on your output. So you need to go control, what can I do, what inputs could I control today that could lead towards having the outputs I require. So I think that's the most important. Don't get caught up in measuring your hours, but make sure that you measure your success based on the output you get. So yeah, hope that answers it. Third question, what advice do I have for someone that's starting an e-commerce business? I think I almost want to extrapolate it to just answering this question for any business. I would say, go chase your first revenue, rand or dollar. I feel people sometimes overcomplicate the questions of how do I register my business? Or how do I build my website? How do I get a logo? For me, I think the most important thing is literally just go and get your first dollar. Once you have your first dollar or your first rand made, it will show to you that you actually have a product that people want to buy. There's no point in building something that you don't know if there's demand for, right? So just don't be scared of figuring that out. I feel when people come and ask me questions, usually it's how did you structure your business account versus your private account with Investec? And they haven't made a single rand revenue. And it almost blows my mind, because my instinct, in which I think you should focus on, is go chase the first revenue cent and then go figure out the website and the logo, etc. And I can touch on that on a later stage, but it is something that's much easier than people think. But just don't be scared to go chase that first dollar. Awesome. Well, where I see Old School in 3 to 5 years, it's funny because my brother and I, every few months, our vision sort of adjusts a bit. But I think where we see the gap in the market is to create leisure wear that people can wear to any sport and to make them feel good in it. I think a lot of times the official merchandise is of a low quality and a very expensive price with a lot of branding on, and I think we found the gap of creating products that make people feel proud to wear to any sport. I think the one side of the South African ranges that we do in our business, when I was actually in the UK, Matthew Moore was performing in Hyde Park, and I went and I saw a couple of people wearing these jerseys, and I just thought to myself, shit. I asked him, like, why are you wearing this to like an artist? He's like, well, this is our piece of South Africa in the UK. So I think we've got almost an obligation to create this brand for the South Africans that's all across the globe, that they can really feel proud of supporting South Africa. And then our leisure wear side, we believe we want to build a brand that really captures the heart of the vintage, old school vibe that we want to create. I think the definition of old school is it stands for someone that wants to do it as it used to be done because they believe it's a better way. And I think that's our definition, is creating merchandise that's timeless and to grow this into a global brand. Last question, and thank you once again for all of these valuable questions. Regarding the program and making a choice, I think it's so important to ask yourself, where do you want to be in 5 years? And like, what is your risk appetite? If you want to play it very safe, I think auditing is a really great route to go into the pond with only your toes and dip in, and slowly but surely, by the time you sign off as a chartered accountant, be knee deep in the water. But if you want to jump in and you want to experience what it is to swim, come to a top program where you'll actually get the experience needed to be an entrepreneur, to be a business leader. What they're looking for in the VAT IT group is people that have the ability to be exceptional leaders. They're not looking for someone that wants a mundane 3 years of the same boring, repetitive work. And I'm not saying that's what auditing is. But if you want to have that exciting, exhilarating opportunity to grow in your 3 years and really ask yourself that the sky is the limit in your next 5 years, I think this is a great bet. Once again, everyone, thank you so much for joining. I'm almost humbled by the fact that this 30 minutes people are putting aside to listen to me, but I hope I could add some value, and even if it's just one thing that gave you a bit of motivation. So yeah, once again, if you're interested, thank you so much for the VAT IT group and for sponsoring this, so that we can enable the youth to actually hear and learn from other business founders. So go to www.vatit.com. I'm sure it'll be in the links below if you want to find out anything, or like I said, email me, WhatsApp me, whatever you want. I'll give you my details if you have any questions. And if you want a jersey, just go online. I'm sure you'll find us. Cheers.